It's my pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker. Are you ready for the keynote? All right, sounds good. So, this is a friend of close to 15 years, Sabrina Mosby. She is the president and CEO of Vibrant Pittsburgh. When Representative Innamorato, her and I were talking earlier, I said she's also been president and CEO of a lot of the coolest organizations in Pittsburgh, which is not untrue. For years, Sabrina ran Strong Women, Strong Girls. For years, she ran the Coro Center for Civic Leadership. She was the youth advisor for the mayor of Pittsburgh at a certain time, I think working with your brother, actually. So she's been active, certainly, in the community, has either won every award or been a finalist for every award, serves on lots of boards herself, is certainly the kind of person that says, there is no reason to be bored in Pittsburgh. Let's be on a board in Pittsburgh. That's Sabrina Mosby. She's like the definition of that. So I want to give a big round of applause and welcome our keynote speaker, Sabrina Saunders Mosby.
It is so exciting to be here with you this morning and not wrangling my 15-month-old to put on diaper cream. So I'm so happy that you invited me here this morning at 8 a.m. Because now that means that Dad has to do those things. Who knows about that life? It's the first time that I've actually been to this place, and so I'm excited to spend some time in Millville this morning. My family and I recently moved to the North Hills. We live in Franklin Park 4 years now. We've been in the area. We are Pittsburghers, and so we are making our way through this new area and building new friends with a brand new community of people. We jokingly say that no one can really stake their ground in our community because we all build at the same time. So we are literally building community together. And as I speak to you this morning, I'm going to talk to you about why that's actually really important. And that kind of experience can change the way that individuals who we need to be in our communities, who we should want to be in our communities, experience them. So thank you, Tom, and our Post Community Outreach for extending the invitation for me to speak this morning. Hopefully you will not be disappointed, and perhaps maybe I'll be invited back. Tom and I have been for favorites for the last 15 years, so that means I'm up next. As mentioned, I serve as president and CEO of Vibrant Pittsburgh, an economic development organization that has partnered with a diverse array of community-based affinity groups and our region's largest employers to grow the diversity of our region's workforce. So I'm going to be talking about that today. Our member organizations include companies like BNY Mellon, PNC Bank, Highmark, UPMC, Dick's Sporting Goods, FedEx, Ground, PPG Industries, UPMC, as I mentioned before, who is a pillar member of our organization, American Eagle, Duquesne Light, just to name a few. We have about 105 companies that are members of Vibrant Pittsburgh, from small tech startup companies to global organizations that have a footprint here in the region. My role at Vibrant Pittsburgh is to serve as an inclusion partner. When I was hired, my board thought that they were hiring someone that would serve as an accountability partner. And about 30 days into my role, I realized that just wasn't going to work. It's not my job to hold corporations accountable as it relates to building diversity of their workforce. So we serve as an inclusion partner in this work. We help them to develop goals and metrics that establish a foundation for inclusivity in the workplace. When I talk to companies and ask them what the number one challenge for their business is, do you know what it is? Do you know what they tell me? Well, if you don't, obviously I'm going to tell you. It's the competition for talent and being an attractive place to work, actually, and even more so during this time of a pandemic. The competition for talent is made more complicated by the increasing mobility of our Gen X and Gen Yers. Granted, people obviously may or may not be a little bit more cautious during this time, but if you've seen anything in the news, you'll realize that there are generations that are moving quickly from job to job, from region to region because of opportunity right now. So this is intensified. The job market, the talent market is like the housing market right now. It's really tough. Best analogy out there right Workers in the United States are still among the most mobile labor force in the world, believe it or not. In our region, leadership across various businesses, education, civic, and government sectors realize that to be regionally competitive, it would require banding together. Our region's institutions needed to collaborate to ensure that our region was a destination of opportunity for people of all backgrounds. We got a lot of work to do. But the willingness to combine their resources and learned experiences in the Pittsburgh region, which is the battlefield right now, the battlefield for the war on talent, people realize that their collective efforts could pay real dividends in generating opportunities for diversity of opportunity for our seekers of employment, for those that are seeking employment. In one of my favorite speeches, President Obama recognized Pittsburgh as providing a model for turning the page to the 21st century economy. The region's collaborative efforts and two-pronged workplace and community place approach should have positioned the region as a model warrior in the competition for talent. We're still lagging behind. When I look at many of our communities that are struggling right now, communities that this organization supports, specifically community members, we know that we've got a lot of work to do. But what I know to be true is that the promise of diversity, which is what Vibrant Pittsburgh is focusing on, and that is diversity seen and unseen. That is the definition of diversity as it relates to Vibrant Pittsburgh. The promise of diversity lies in the willingness of people to do the work and hold ourselves accountable for getting that work done. A good friend and a founding board member of Vibrant Pittsburgh often tells me, even as he was rolling off of the board, he often tells me, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but creating more diverse and inclusive places begins with the personal decisions and choices we make every single day. And we have some difficult challenges that are facing us, right? A recent and well-known report of the City of Pittsburgh's Gender Equity Commission devastatingly illustrated the social and livability disparities that exist in the city as compared to other cities that are not faring well. Meaning that across every index, for that matter, health, income, employment, housing, and education, particularly as they relate to Black women, were very alarming. Black woman standing in front of you. One who very soon after that report came out became pregnant. I told you I have a 15-month-old pandemic baby, right? And so imagine me reading the report, doing this work, becoming pregnant, and having to go into the hospital system, recognizing the mortality rate for people like me, regardless of my education, regardless of my socioeconomic status, right? I was more likely to die, and so was my child, because I lived in this region. That is unacceptable. So regardless of race, regardless of nationality, ethnicity, gender identity, faith, sexual orientation, age, veteran status, physical, mental, intellectual abilities, rich or poor, you get it, right? The difference, right? There are all kinds of areas of difference. The good news for Pittsburgh is that we've come together before to solve really big challenges. And we're a community with a track record of beating the odds and overcoming adversity. I wouldn't be doing this work if I didn't think that together we couldn't tackle these challenges. I really do believe that. And we've created and invested in solutions that have transformed our region. But the reason that we did that is because everyone was on the same page about what the problem and the challenges were. Right? We've got to get on the same page, folks. Today, people of color make up more than 37% of the nation's population. By 2043, minorities will make up more than 50% of the population. That is a fact. As of today, more than 51% of the workers entering the workforce are minorities. If cities want to ensure long-term viability, more or less global economic competitiveness, they will need to be a region with the ability to engage and retain talent that is diverse. Yes, many times the region has overcome historic recessions, but there are people who have been left behind during these great transformations, and we know that to be true. They have yet to feel the recovery. It is the reason why organizations like this exist. Many of those people are from my community, from our communities, and we see this impact both indirectly and directly every day. So those are the facts. That's the groundwork, right? That's the heavy stuff. But we're going to go a little bit deeper. So for my personal story, the best way I know how to offer true insight, to inspire, to engage you is by sharing a story and then inviting you to actually participate in change. So throughout my lifetime, I quickly learned the old saying, it's not who you know, but who knows you. I learned that at a very early age. It's always been said that it's not who you know, but it's not who you know, but who knows you is not what they typically say, excuse me. But I learned that was the reality. We all know that an effective relationship, personally and professionally, can make a difference in a person's personal and professional development. I've been blessed to benefit from strong and successful relationships. But in addition to your development, a relationship with a champion or a sponsor can make a difference in someone's personal or professional success. For the next few minutes, I'm going to take you on a little journey with me. And hopefully, by the end of those few minutes, I'm going to turn us all into champions. And since we are by connection, even though we're in Millville, I would say that we can all connect to being a part of the City of Champions. I live in North Hills, but when people ask me where I live, I say Pittsburgh. Don't fight me. But as champions, hopefully we'll all be able to win together. You get it, right? So I met my first champion in the early 2000s. It was actually right before I met Tom. I graduated from college and secured a position in a nonprofit that was led by a mentor that I had in high school. At that time, I had no idea that there was a difference between a mentor and a champion, but I'll tell you my story and you can be the judge. When I graduated from college, I didn't exactly have a clear-cut plan. I didn't have a job secured. I was toying with the idea of graduate school because every other option seemed big and scary for me at the time. My mother, who I always talk about, and lifelong mentor, made it very clear to me that I had two options: either get a job or go back to school. With a college degree and no clear plan, my options for employment were not very glamorous. The post office, working admin for a hospital or some other corporation. I wasn't really sure. But I had just graduated with a bachelor's degree in communications, a minor in philosophy, and catch this, I wanted to be a speechwriter. But I had no idea how to get there. I was walking around my neighborhood one day, and at this point in time, I lived in Garfield, in the East End. Walking around my neighborhood one day, just after graduation, I ran into someone, for all intents and purposes, had been a mentor for me in high school. That day, after catching up, I found out about a job opportunity that they had in his office, and of course, he encouraged me to apply. Interestingly enough, it was a job running a youth program that I was once a participant in as a child. Of course, I got the job. Without me even realizing what he was doing, this community leader, now a good friend of mine, made the conscious decision to mentor me. But not actually on that day, it was actually long before then. He helped me build my brand by always noticing and calling out to attention my strengths, my critical thinking, my independence, using words to describe me like smart, mature, leader, persistent, hard worker, independent, talented, skilled, outgoing, brave, confident, tough, strong, and outspoken. My mentor promoted my independence by encouraging and supporting problem solving, exploration, and stretching me out of my comfort zone, teaching me to reject stereotypical limitations to female or token roles. When I struggled, he always said, I will watch you and coach you if you need it, but you can do this by yourself. He encouraged thinking and speaking up and never accepted my silence, always questioning me and encouraging me to question, refine my thinking, share my opinions, and achieve more. While working in the organization, he made the transition from mentor to champion. Now, The concept may seem a bit uncomfortable for some in the room, but the reality is there are other, I'm a female, and there are other genders that have been doing this for quite some time. Somehow the memo about finding or becoming a champion went out to everyone except for a number of women in our community. So what's the difference? A mentor is someone who has the experience with a group, a community, or an organization, and they give you strategies and day-to-day advice. It's important to have this distinction because some of us think that we're mentoring people and we're really not. They actually are someone that you can trust with asking questions, sharing information and guidance, learning the inside scoop, and learning how to avoid common or sometimes uncommon missteps. Champions, this is very different. We've heard the word sponsor. It's extremely important. A champion is exactly what the word says. You champion someone. Just like you would a great cause or a brilliant idea, just like you would an organization like this, you champion someone. This means that a champion would likely put in a good word for you when an opportunity arises that you may not know about. They inform others about you. They sell your abilities to others. And at first I wondered, why would this person do this for me? What's in it for them? Soon I realized that they were getting as much out of this relationship as I was. The idea of giving back was important. We all understand the importance of giving back. And Tom said that I do it more than I probably should. The idea of giving back was important, and that was something that I inherited. So if you're wondering why I'm on a million boards and why I spend my time investing in others in community, it's because I was invested in very early on. He invested a great deal of time and energy into ensuring that my personal and professional growth was sustained. As a champion, he added legitimacy to me. And he put his reputation to work for me. I was invited to speak and represent the organization often. I wasn't even able to drink yet, and I was actually invited to speak and represent the organization often, to work on major projects, or to just be in the room when decisions were being made. And my champion was always behind me, behind the recommendations, always supporting me and keeping my name and talent in conversations he had with others. You see, I worked very hard. I tried my very best to shine, but I'm in no way confused that the personal introductions, the recommendations on my behalf, the intentional way that I was championed ultimately made the difference. Now, I'm not saying that mentoring relationships are unimportant, because it was that investment that was made by a mentor that provided the foundation that I needed to be championed in the first place. Many of the mentors and champions in my life have been men, and there's nothing wrong with that. But professionally, I've encountered women who I've saw as barriers to success and that were worse than the glass ceiling. I'll say one thing about that. Let's not be that. Moving along. Although not mentoring is quite different from actively undermining, both may operate from the same position of fear, and neither benefits anyone. We cannot be afraid to champion one another. We cannot forget the bridges that were built for us the moment that we cross them. We have a responsibility, right? Whether you know it or not, to those that are following in our footsteps. I actually met one champion early in my career who was my first female champion, the retired president and CEO of the Urban League. She was a true champion for me, for women, and for education and equity. You don't have to take my word for it. At an event a number of years ago, I was invited to attend with her at the White House. President Obama named her a champion of change in the area of education. Now, you do notice that I said that I was invited to attend with her. Why? Because that's what champions do. She had always pointed out women in leadership positions, leadership roles, and non-traditional jobs and fields, and challenged me to think of how I could address the challenges that they face. My favorite line that she would always say is, when you're CEO, you won't have to want this to be your problem to fix, so let's get to it. Not that it was an expectation, but she reminded me that it was an option that I would be CEO. The funny thing is, she told me that I could and would be a CEO way before I thought that it was possible, 3 times over at this point in my life. I'm not asking you to be your brother or your sister's keeper. I'm merely reminding you that at one point in time, perhaps you were in need and someone cared enough to mentor and or to champion you. Regardless of the champions in my life, for the better part of my career, I have been the only Black woman in leadership roles or on the leadership team. Growing up, I was the only person in my community wearing a uniform to school, and then either the only or one of very few Black women enrolled in the schools that I attended. Although I am quite used to being the only one, it can be extremely isolating, leaving you feeling out of place. I remember numerous times feeling invisible when employers celebrated diversity of leadership solely based on gender, especially being the only Black woman. It's heartening to see corporate leaders commit to gender equality, both through company-wide policies and pledges. However, many of these programs fall short of addressing true systemic barriers to gender equality if they only propel white women to move ahead. Regardless of gender, regardless of race, religious beliefs, or other identifiers, I'm actually sure that each of us can think of a moment when we felt like we didn't belong. It's not a feeling that you actually forget. Even as children, we kind of develop a spidey sense for it. Exclusion hurts. And thinking of times when you didn't quite fit in because of something that you actually couldn't control can teleport you right back to that sad pit in your stomach feeling. Every single one of us have had those moments. Think of that soul-destroying feeling of not belonging. Now imagine dealing with that every single day at work, even when you're the boss. So now you met me. And I want you to think about the spaces and places that you occupy. Have you ever wondered if the colleagues who sit around you feel as though they have to filter major parts of their personal identity out of their professional persona? If they check a part of their life at the door each day? How painful must it be to tolerate that sense of exclusion every single day just to make a living? Yet it happens all the time. Last year, I was reminded during a keynote, actually, I think it was almost 2 years ago now. We lose a year with this pandemic, I keep forgetting. But I was reminded during a keynote that was delivered by a local professor from the University of Pittsburgh that with all of our talk about diversity and inclusion, we often fail to realize that just because someone is included in an organization or a community, it certainly does not mean that they feel that they belong. So I challenge you. I challenge you to consider the spaces, the places, and perhaps even the people that this is occurring to around you. As leaders, we all have and will encounter challenges. Let those barriers be external, not internal. I'm going to say that one more time because I want to make sure that you catch it. There are barriers, obviously, but let those barriers that you face be external, not internal. Your life will be your greatest teacher. We all know that. So let it be filled with mistakes. I'm going to give you a kind of the rah-rah that I would give young people, because regardless of all the wisdom in the room, we still have room to grow. It's from the tougher experiences that we become wise. And as I said, we all have room to grow. And I won't assume anything about age. Please start considering how you can champion and include others. You don't have to be at the top to start, and you just have to be genuine and purposeful with your efforts. But the rewards go both ways, as I'm sure you all already know. Who we are and how we do things is just as important as what we do. The most important aspect in the role that you have as you are leading is who you become while you're on this journey. And I hope that you will join me on this journey, because we can't do this without each other. And together we are very, very powerful. This community needs us. And without our collective efforts, we will continue to fall behind. Thank you so much.
What's a healthy community is a vibrant community. It's when you see somebody down and you have the ability to help, why wouldn't you? They're in your community. They have the house next door to you. If they don't have the ability to mow their lawn, take out their garbage, go get their prescriptions, anything. You're talking about somebody that lives right next door that just needs a hand. You know, what decent person wouldn't give that hand? And I think it's important that leaders in business, we've gotten to the point where we are now because of our personality, the way that we conduct ourselves, our education, you know, whatever has gotten us to this point. That means that we also have an effect on people if we're a leader. So why not take that effect and use it towards something that only is going to make your community healthier?
Roots of Faith has grown exponentially in 5 years to the point that we reached out to North Hills Community Outreach with a red flag during the pandemic. We handled over 500 social service calls alone in 1 year with 2 caseworkers, myself and a volunteer. And that doesn't include all of our other programming. We single-handedly provided all the crisis relief in Sharpsburg for the last 20 months, from produce boxes, groceries, coats, Christmas presents. 250 families we helped with Christmas last year, 500 coats through our partnership with the Pittsburgh International Airport, 500 bags of groceries a week that we delivered to people's homes, on top of the other 200 that we passed out, and 400 produce boxes.
So we've got a lot of elected officials running around Harrisburg, and we have district offices, which is something we're planted in each community, and it's a resource really for the community. And we do want to hear from the community members about what policies that they would like us to enact in Harrisburg, and how we can make the Commonwealth more competitive and more business friendly and better working for everyone. But it's also an opportunity for us to reach out and to use that holy pulpit, as Tom said, for good and in the community to be a resource.
What our office has done is really try to be proactive and not just saying like, hey, North Hills Community Outreach, come to us when you have an idea, but like, how do we get to not only the organizations, but the people who you serve through your organization? So we've done like town halls on buses on a Wednesday afternoon to just see who's riding the bus and how that experience is for them and what they need to be connected with. When we had, we knew we were facing an economic crisis with COVID-19. So immediately we called up Kathleen, we called up North Hills Community Outreach, and we said, hey, we're designing a rental relief program. How is this current one not working, and how can we make it better, right? It's that vital feedback that helped us to go to Harrisburg. Maybe we're not passing legislation, but we're working with the administration to change policy so that you can more effectively serve people.